but I want you to pronounce yourself on record on the issue of equalization fund liability. And before I say that, by the way, Honorable CS, we engaged with the Equalization Fund board through the CEO. And last year we said this committee, which is the primary oversight committee of devolved functions and as well as also Equalization Fund to county government, that we need to get a regular report of implementation of Equalization Fund. The last one we got the last financial year. This year we have one report we've not received from the Equalization Fund board. Implementation report. The last meeting we've had with your officer, the CEO, was a guidance, because we don't want the Equalization Fund to be in theory, and the Parliament must have visibility in form of oversight. We have not received any report, and we agreed we need to receive quarterly implementation report to keep the implementation of Equalization Fund on track. And we also need to find out whether from you or from your officer why that has not happened, but then address yourself to a letter of commitment that was written by your predecessor upon inquiry by the Senate of arrears compliance plan, and that arrears compliance plan has not worked as written to us. We've written to you to get to find out Equalization Fund implementation sunset clause is fast approaching. We have Equalization Fund administration bill that is stuck at the National Assembly for 2 years, while the arrears stand at 39 billion, and even appropriated fund of equalization in 2024-2025 were not credited to Equalization Fund account, except a small portion that happened. So we need to get to find out, because otherwise this becomes an academic exercise when it comes to implementation of Equalization Fund, and the arrears will continue. So can you tell us how Treasury intends to comply with the arrears when the sunset clause is fast approaching, and whether or how do you intend to give the Senate a revised arrears implementation plan in terms of making do with the arrears that are pending of 39 billion over the coming years, and your commitment to make sure once appropriated, the fund should be credited to Equalization Fund in order to make sure the functions work.
Now, Chair was asked to talk about the status of compliance with the commitment of proposal plan to pay Equalization Fund arrears that was submitted to the Senate through the letter dated 19th of May 2023, written by my predecessor. Background: Equalization Fund is established by Article 204 of the 2010 Constitution of Kenya, which requires that 0.5% of all the revenue collected by the national government each year, calculated on the basis of the most recent audited revenue received.
Honorable Waziri, I want you to skip that part of the law, the provisions, the policies, and go straight to how Treasury intends to comply with addressing the issue of arrears of Equalization Fund, and your commitment to credit to Equalization Fund account any appropriated fund of equalization. Just at those two issues.
Thank you, Sir Chair. So, entitlements to the Equalization Fund. Honorable Chair, in the first 3 financial years after its establishment, that is 2011 to 2012, 2012-13, and 2013-14, the Equalization Fund had no allocation since the first policy identifying the marginalized areas had not been developed and published. That is not news, I'm sure, Chair. But since inception, that is 2011, 2012 to 2025-2026, the total entitlement to the fund is 80,092,847.94. So it's over 80 billion shillings, which should have gone into this fund, which is calculated based on the provisions of Article 204.1. As of June 30th, 2025, the National Treasury had paid 15.93 billion into the funds out of the 80 billion. The current outstanding amount is 64.162 billion, including the financial year 2025-2026 allocation. So in the financial year 2024-2025, the Division of Revenue Act allocated 7.8 billion, out of which 2.5 billion was paid into the fund, leaving arrears of 5.352 billion. And the table is has been provided there. Now, completion status of projects. So this is the table. The completion status has been provided to the counties. I mean, how the money has been applied in the counties. So let me go to page 6 of my presentation. To facilitate payment of Equalization Fund arrears, the National Treasury, via letter, which I had already indicated, to the Senate dated May 19, 2023, proposed a plan to allocate additional funds annually to the Equalization Fund to clear arrears by allocating 9.976 billion each financial year, to all the way to 2027-2028, which would then have amounted to 39.9 billion as shown in the table. So that
is assuming each financial year the appropriated equalization fund is credited to the account.
Yeah, that was assuming that would be over and above the normal, or rather the constitutionally provided allocation. However, Chairman, due to tight fiscal space, the National Treasury has not appropriated the arrears as per the payment plan provided due to the following reasons. One is the commitment to clear the funds owed to the fund was planned for the 2024-25 financial year. However, you will recall that the Finance Bill 2024 fell flat, which was to raise the 347 billion in revenue intended to help the government pay off debt and fund development projects, including the debts owed to the Equalization Fund, was withdrawn after public protests, Chairman. And
I want to stop you there. You know, we are all politicians, and Honorable Waziri, with a lot of respect, it's very shameful if you sit here as a seasoned legislature. There are a lot of funds that are appropriated, including county additional allocation, conditional grant, and many other issues. Why don't you just come on record and say the government does not wish to support Equalization Fund and implement Equalization Fund for the record? Because other funds, conditional grants, are remitted with some liabilities. Any flimsy reason is good enough for non-remittance of Equalization Fund to Equalization Fund account. And sincerely speaking, it's a very sad reality. The original intent of the drafters of the Constitution is to address some, deliberate resource denial by successive governments, by policy document of government, and it was believed that to address that situation could not have been a switch on and off. It had to comply with a process of making good with that. Despite the fact that devolution came, this is constitutional requirement. It's grave violation of the Constitution by Treasury or by extension the government, because it's the law. It clearly states what it doesn't state subject to other, because you present a budget that should be realistic, ought to be realistic, and is believed to be realistic. Then within that budget, 0.5% is supposed to go to Equalization Fund. Now, if you appear before the committee and you make nice statement of fiscal constraints, you've not been asked by the Constitution. The article clearly states, and you are a legislator. I don't want to engage you on this because it will get a bit embarrassing. The article clearly states that after, Equalization Fund is set apart in clear provisions of the Constitution. You present a budget that should be realistic, ought to be realistic, and is believed to be realistic. all these constraints you will discuss is supposed to be have been taken care of by the time you do budgeting. So 0.5% ought to just go as soon as it is appropriated. Now, please, sincerely, with a lot of respect. So I don't refer you to the sections of the the articles of the Constitution. Can you tell us when Treasury intends to comply? In simple terms. Then all these other internal processes, you make the necessary adjustment in budget, as you've just shared. The original estimate of the budget, for example, of the current financial year was about 3 trillion. You had to adjust it downwards, informed by other realities. After you have adjusted, you have to set apart the 0.5. Okay, then it means this 0.5 is within the constraints of all the realities. And immediately it's appropriated, it's supposed to be credited to Equalization Fund account. Tell us how Treasury intends to comply. And kindly, because we are dealing with informed individuals like yourself, avoid other descriptions that will put us in embarrassing setting. Over to you, Waziri.